All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, host Brandon, join my co-host Nick and Dan. And gentlemen, is the Man City match review. It was the big one on Saturday, Dan. It was like the big noon kickoff on Fox. It drew in all the eyes, and you were taking it in from legends, weren't you?
I was. The New York City Blues were out in fine fashion on a afternoon kickoff. That's right, because it happened after it turned noon, which definitely drew out a more sizable crowd, but it was also joined by friend of the pod, Gary Hayes. And look, he abandoned plans to go collect art from from Staten Island for a friend after the game and decided to just get pissed up with the lot of us. So it was a good afternoon after what was a much better result than many anticipated. So yeah, it was a good day out.
Huge shout to the folks of the Belfry in Kansas City as well. It was also very nice to see so many folks, and yeah, very intense atmosphere in there.
I'm sure. All the way around. Noted on Gary, if you need your art collected, maybe not after a Chelsea match. I'll put that in the old notes section in his contact. But hey, look, we've got a ton of exciting things to get at, as we always do. We're going to break down the match. Was it a big result? Was it points dropped? Who are the standout players? And so much more. But before we get into it, Dan, we have to let the people have their say with our 3-word match review.
Look, a lot of them were praising the players and the performance. Shane starts us off with pay the man bun. Little recognition for Conor Gallagher there. Also Spanish Joe with Gusto Gallagher, Battlestar Galactica. I feel like this one's just going to be a trend throughout the rest of the season. Dope Moji had Rodri Party Pooper. 100% agree. He definitely spoiled all the antics and fun. You had TK Lot with the undefeated without Thiago. A lot of eyeball reactions to that one. Our good friend Adi with the sauciest point. Very good. Jeff Jokes Daddy with the Alex No Foley. Very, very good. And then Claire with the Poch Pips Pep. That's right. One of the 4 teams to walk away with a point from the Etihad this season. Not a common occurrence. Is
it truly pipping him if we've only drawn twice? I don't know. I might have some issue with that.
If you look at all of the teams in the Premier League, not European competition, the fact that we have taken 2 points, most teams are not getting any points from Man City this season. So just keep that in mind.
All right. Let it stand.
We're grading out a curve. All right. Yep. That's clearly how we're playing this one. But this is good. All right. I put success through discipline. Right? Today was the day where everybody's happy to self-sacrifice and plays a unit and got it done. Making the extra runs back. The effort was well rewarded. Dan, what about you?
Echoes in Etihad, because this felt like a little bit of a classic Chelsea performance, going toe-to-toe, making it difficult, not surrendering in the tough moments. And yeah, I know the end goal from Rodri did take a little bit of the shine off it, but I think in general, Nick, this was a pretty comprehensive result and definitely what we want to see more of. And I'm sure you have something similar with your 3-word match review.
I do. Passion, intensity, resolve. It was all on display. The team came out from minute 1, recognizing that they were in a heavyweight fight and reacted accordingly. And I found myself being incredibly proud of them after.
Understandable. Thankfully, I think that is a lot of the sentiment. But Nick, before we get into the episode, as always, we appreciate the 5-star reviewers out there and so much more.
Absolutely. Free things you can do to help support us if you enjoy listening to our content 4, 5, or 6 days a week. 5-star reviews, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. We have now passed 30,000 subscribers. It was a long old haul, but we did it, and that's thanks to you. And of course, sign up for the Dispatch, the newsletter typically written by CFC Central, if not by Dan Dormer. Then if you do want to kind of up the ante a little bit and throw some money at us, the conversation in Discord was electric yesterday. Yes, I did peer in to see what was going on, the conversation that was being had. A few bucks a month, and you're in on that. So appreciate anyone doing any of those things.
Yeah, especially for those of you not on social media, we get a lot of that. Can't do three-word match review. Can't do day of the match. You can in Discord. So that is a nice way to get involved. But let's dive into it now, right? This was Manchester City, the 17th of February in the Premier League, away at the Etihad Stadium. And in case you somehow missed it, Manchester City won, Chelsea won. Goals coming in the 42nd minute from Raheem Sterling. Beautiful assist to Nico Jackson. And then in the 83rd minute, Rodri stealing the dreams and the points were shared. So, Dan, run us through the lineup. Let us know what Poch did to get a point.
Petrovic between the sticks, and it was Gusto Disasi, Levi Colwell, and Ben Chilwell as your captain on the day. Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Conor Gallagher made up your midfield, and Cole Palmer, Raheem Sterling, and Nico Jackson were your attack. Look, it was only 3 subs on the day. That's right. We got back to a little more traditional substitute appearances from the bench, and it was Nkunku in the 64th minute, Chalobah in the 71st minute, and Casadei in the 82nd minute. Bettinelli, Gilchrist, Samuel Smith, Mudryk, Harrison, and Madueke, all unused subs in the match.
Kind of surprised he didn't unleash the Alfie at the end there, but hey, it all worked out in the end, I guess. So we'll roll with it. Some of the top line stats for everybody. We had a Man City with the 2.69 XG to Chelsea's 1.44. They had 70% of possession, 31 shots, but only 5 on target. Chelsea with 9 shots, but 6 on target. Very much the difference on the day. Man City had 14 of their shots blocked. Bravo, Chelsea's defense. More to come on that one. And we defended 12 corner kicks, by the way. And the rest of the set pieces we defended. It's a good old day. We had 3 cautions to their 1. And we had 3 big chances. 2 missed. To Man City had 3 big chances with 3 missed. So we got the 1 out of 3 conversion.
Got him.
We
got him.
Is overperforming for us right now. And how Man City missed 3 big chances is wild based on the way their season is going. So good stuff from us. They had 23 shots inside the box, gentlemen. And Petrovic with 4 saves on the day. Again, 4 out of the 5 that made it through to him, he handled. Crazy day for the defense. But we have one random stat from Squawka, which is no team has scored more league goals in a single season against a side managed by Pep Guardiola than Chelsea in 2023-2024 with 5. The Citizens ensured they remained unbeaten, though. So, yeah, they can take that.
So did Chelsea.
Also, minor cliff note.
Yep.
What about the end pet shithouse moment of the match?
There were, I think, again, it's a good match if we can come up with more than one typically. So I feel pretty good about these 3. Although if you do have more out there, you're listening to this, you're like, how could that idiot Nick Verlaney miss one of these moments? Please send us a tweet, hit us up on Discord, send us an email, whatever. First moment is Palmer absolutely doing techers on City. A lot of the match, it was incredible. It felt very much to me like he wanted to show Jeremy Doku, who was the better winger, and it was definitely him on the day. The second one was probably the biggest laugh of the day, which was Kyle Walker fouling Raheem Sterling as he's going back to get the ball, and then losing his collective fucking mind when the foul wasn't given for a penalty, doing a huge rollover flip. If it was Neymar, people would have said some very not nice things about that from a flopping perspective. Janique, friend of the pod, said it was like Raheem Sterling gave him a stone cold stunner with the amount of theatrics, and I totally agree with that, co-signed on that one. And then the final one, which we will, of course, talk about in great detail, was it was pretty innocuous first half, but Disasi headed a ball out for a corner and absolutely lost his mind celebrating it like it was a goal. And I think, gents, that set the tone for the day in a way that I really appreciated and that we haven't seen a whole lot of in some time at Chelsea, maybe since Rudiger back Champions League winning season. So just a lot of different types of shithouse moments here, but all very, very funny.
You know, you talk a lot about the atmosphere inside the bridge, right? And it's a little bit different when you're away. but there's always like the two sides to it. The players have to give something for the fans to react to, or the fans have to essentially gin up the energy so the players can react to it. What Disasi was doing for those away fans was absolutely giving them something to react to in a positive way, to say, this is big for us. We're defending for our lives. Get behind us. And they did. And that's what you love to see. It's because there's passion, there's fight, there's an understanding of the importance of literally every single blocking clearance on the day. I mean, the stats were insane. They had 31 total shots. Just under half of them were blocked, not off target, blocked. And then 12 of those were off target on the day, which meant we were closing people down. We were cutting off angles. The defense was very, very tidy on the day. And so absolutely, he earned that ability to celebrate those, which I absolutely loved.
Look, I think I know we're going to get into the big questions here, but to frame this a little bit, this was the match of the year that I was looking forward least to. Okay. Like, I think City are undoubtedly the best team in the world. I think they will undoubtedly win everything again this year because they are supremely talented. De Bruyne is back. Holland, their whole squad is immaculate. They do a really great job. And we have went now to their house. They've come to our house, and we have left unscathed in both games. And I think if you would have given us that at the start of the season with no context otherwise for how the season was going to go, I would have bitten your arm off to have that as a result. To take 2 points out of those games when we haven't had a real result against them since the Champions League final. I just want to say that, and I know it's not a shithouse moment, but just a little bit of context and framing here. Like, I think that's a pretty goddamn good place for where we are right now.
Again, it's funny the conversation I had with my wife, but it's like, she's like, aren't they doing well? I'm like, it depends on the week, right? It's like you squeak by one day and then you lose the next, and then you go toe to toe with City. I'm like, that pretty much is a good summary of where we've been.
We were on a 6-game losing streak to Manchester City before this season. It was 1-0, 1-0, 2-0, 1-0, 4-0, 1-0. Like, we hadn't even scored a goal against Manchester City since the Champions League final. So taking that into context, like when you look at like season over season improvement, we had a massive season over season improvement just in our matches against Manchester City, taking 2 points versus taking no points last season.
So Dan's saying if this was his performance review and Man City was the metric, he has done quite well year over year, and he deserves a raise.
I think so.
Hey, we're gonna pause it there. We're gonna take our first ad break. When we get back, we're leading with the big question. Thank you to sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. So look, the big question on the day, I think that everybody was kind of back and forth was the result and if it was good or bad. We had Potch's take, so we'll set the line here. And he came out after the match saying, quote, "Today was a great performance. We scored first, and the first half was very good game. I'm so pleased, and I told the players this and congratulated them because the effort was massive. The spirit we showed today is the way we want to compete with the talent we have in all the areas. We will reach the level we expect. I'm so pleased because to play a team that is the best in the world is never easy. And today, the character and personality of the team showed made me very happy," end quote. So really, it comes down to, was this a tough earned point and a good performance, or a disappointing draw and a poorly managed result? Dan, the time is yours, sir.
I think it was a strong performance. I think it is absolutely the former, full stop. This was a result that we had been looking for. I think it is against one of the best teams, not just in England, but in world football at the moment. And Chelsea would say, as a measuring stick, we have not necessarily been at the level of City consistently this season by any way, stretch, or mean of how you would measure it. Like, yes, we do have some good underlying statistics, but necessarily the results and the end outcome have not always matched up to what our output should be. We studied for the test, but we don't always ace the test. We have the book knowledge, but we don't necessarily apply it appropriately. And in this scenario and in this match, there was a total team commitment. There was the togetherness that Pochettino has been preaching with the players, and there was a desire to go out and do something in this match. We saw players like Cole Palmer getting involved with Doku because, like, hey, remember why you sold me? It was this guy, and this guy was quiet this whole game. So in general, like, there were so many things to enjoy from this match. I think if you said at the beginning of the day you're going to get a draw against Manchester City, you take it in isolation. The fact that we were winning for so long and then ultimately conceded in the last 10 minutes, I think is where people walked away a little bit more frustrated, a little upset, maybe feeling like there was a lot of mismanagement at the end of the game. But I think in general, Nick, like, I walked away feeling really good about this. And yes, it sucked to only get 1 point, but if you'd given me 1 point at the beginning of the game, I would have taken 1 point.
I don't know what the hell's happened where I'm the most positive person about this performance on the show, but first of all, I am hugely proud of this performance. I left the pub like a bolt of energy. It hit me. I thought it was awesome. For those who are complaining about this, and perhaps Brandon Busby will give his dissenting opinion here in a second. Again, context matters here. Our defense has been very off and on, but mostly shambolic this year. We're playing the best team in the world, not one of the best teams in the world. They are the best team in the world. We have been up and down all year. Performances have been untrackable in terms of consistency. And you're playing at their house. And all that happened was Chelsea showed up, like John Terry gave the pre-match talk, and went out and performed like we believe a Chelsea team should perform in a big game. They went out from minute one, kept discipline, kept shape, fought for each other. I use fought for the badge very loosely because I think a lot of that's bullshit when you're getting paid $300,000 a week, but whatever. Like, it looked like a team for one of the very first times this season. It looked like everyone was in sync with what the game plan was. It looked like everyone knew what their job was, and everyone delivered on that job. I mean, look, Rodri's goal, football therapy, Yan and I were kind of arguing about this after the fact. I don't think anything's stopping that Rodri goal. I don't think Trev's knee getting in the way changes that outcome. Personally, I've watched it a bunch. I think it's either in the side net or it's in the middle of the net where it ended up. Sometimes shit happens. But the amount of commitment that was showed across the board today was incredible. And look, my last point about this, about the strategy in the last 25 minutes and people's antsiness about this, Chelsea went out with a rope-a-dope strategy. A rope-a-dope strategy, for those who are unaware, is a boxing terminology where you try and basically tire out an opponent so you can hammer him in the late rounds, right? Chelsea neither tired City out, nor did we counterpunch hard enough to knock them out, right? So in that scenario, you kind of have to turn around and play defensive a little bit to make it through and split a decision. That's exactly what we did. Look, you can question whatever you want. The result is that we got a point away. We didn't get battered right before a cup final, which I think would have soured everything for everybody. And I walk away feeling like this team could actually become a team. 2 thumbs up. I'm good.
I think that there's definitely the opportunities to criticize little things that we should have definitely scored more than one. The
100%.
The opportunities that we had, right? And the fact that Man City clearly didn't respect us enough to change it. They allowed it over and over. Raheem on the wing, Jackson. But to be fair, Jackson's a hold-up winger, and those layoffs and then peeling and running, like, that worked to a T today, right? So I can understand that criticism, but I go back to Nick's point of context. At no point this season do we have have we earned the right to be upset about that, because that's been the status quo. Right? That's been what we've had to deal with. And we've missed results. We finally got the defensive side to back it up, which is the most important thing. It is not that long ago since we lost 4-2 to Wolves or 4-1 to Liverpool, right? That was a hard week for everybody to concede 8. in 2 matches. Since then, obviously getting result against Villa in the cup, maybe sneaking it past Crystal Palace midweek with those late goals, right? And then getting this. Again, this is the momentum that you kind of need, but I don't think at any point in this season we really have the right to be like, man, we should have scored 3 against City, because it just hasn't happened.
Well, also, to be fair, we got super lucky too. I mean, Erling Haaland missing 2 very, very clean header opportunities, like that doesn't always happen in a game. I think he averaged, I think, 1.5 of City's XG himself. So
that De Bruyne pass for the second one. Oh my God.
Look,
it was insane. You couldn't have put it on a plate better. It was crazy.
I mean, so I think we have to keep that in mind on the context side too. Like, yes, could we have had more goals this game? Absolutely. City also could have scored multiple goals as well, given the chances that they had, and we just ended up on the better end of some of the luck spectrum today too, which has not always been the case. Like, our luck plus execution and player performance has not always equaled the end result, and today we hit on everything.
But Chelsea also did something that I think is super important when you're playing, and I hope we see it again in the cup final, right? You want to talk about context. City missed their first couple of opportunities, and then Chelsea put up a wall. Everything was hitting a player. Everything was going out for a corner. None of those corners were successfully converted. It was a lesson in building their frustration. And when they got frustrated, we got on the counterattack. We went on those quick breaks. The first half felt like Spurs away, with the way that we were able to break them down so easily and in such a straightforward manner. Like, Jackson was just like, all right, I'm just going to run real fast, and then there's going to be someone on the other side where I can cross the ball to. And then, by the way, Sterling did Walker again. Did him again for that goal. Now, you could argue he probably should have had a couple in this game, but at the end of the day, like, we're not good enough finishing to Dan's point to say, oh yeah, we should have had 6 goals for sure. Could we have? Maybe, but we're not good enough. So, like, all that to say, like, there were moments in this game to knock City out. If you really wanted to knock them out, if you really wanted to go for it, that time was not the last 25 minutes of the game. They are too fucking good.
Yeah.
They have shown time and time again. Okay. Like, they're good.
And I had said that at halftime, like, no one beats Man City 1-0. Obviously, Dan slid in the Porto. A little bit different stakes, right? But okay, fine.
We were there. We were there for that one.
Erling Haaland with a 1.9 XG. The rest of the team had 1.2 combined. So that was pretty overwhelming that he didn't get a single goal on the day, which was brilliant. And then on the goal for Rodri, it was a 0.12, right? And Raheem's was a 0.14. So at the end of the day, it was very even, right? It came down to very little difference other than, Man City blew a bunch of that. Nick, you had a thread here, kind of just on talking about the match and how you put it into a little bit of context, which obviously you've touched on a little bit of things, but how it seemed to be pretty well received.
Yeah, it was. I think where I started this from is I saw a lot of negative stuff on Twitter about the performance and how Poch was a coward for bringing on a defensive shape, and how Trev Chalobah was to blame for the goal going in, and how blah 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 blah. Look, have your own opinion. I don't care. I clearly have one. That's why we do a podcast. But I think if you were watching that match with any sort of semblance for how this season has gone, for how this team has played, for the youth inexperience mistakes that have typically befallen every single game that we played in this year, and then you watched the City game and you were upset about that, I don't know how to make you happy. I really don't. I think that's the larger point. And I've been through a lot of these points, so I'll just finish by saying this. I enjoyed today a lot. I enjoyed this match a lot, I should say. I think this match could be the difference in this team potentially beating Liverpool in a cup final or not. I think this match could potentially be the difference in this team becoming a team or not. We've asked them to fight all year. We've asked them to be a team all year. They finally do it, and people are upset. It blows my mind. Enjoy this. Enjoy today. Enjoy the grittiness. Enjoy the difficulties. This thing could become something. We're not sure if it will. but it could become something. And it's only going to become something through performances like this.
Again, my favorite stat this season, average age 23.9 for Chelsea on the starting 11, right? Man City 27.5. I think statistically, whoever wins the league is around 28, 29 for average age, because that's just the right balance. So we're 24, and that's with old man Raheem and Ben Chilwell out there. No Thiago.
Elder statesman.
Yeah, skewing that. So anyways, just something to keep in mind. You led into the starting 11, and Dan, I think obviously that's where we saw a lot of, whenever the lineup comes out, a lot of armchair quarterbacking on this one to say, Poch, mistakes here. Obviously, it's impossible for us to predict, but Raheem was targeted as the bad decision in the lineup. He's kind of been in and out a little bit, but when you kind of look at the other options and the fact that he played for City for so long and things like that, when you look at the bench, I mean, the Noni Madueke is probably it. Mudryk seems to be further from the starting lineup. Clearly, Nkunku's not healthy enough or worth risking for this one ahead of a cup final. I mean, between Raheem and Madueke, if that's kind of the only, potential switch, I personally didn't really see the harm in letting Raz start.
I think where people were questioning it was just around ties back to maybe the decision making he has in the final third, which doesn't always pan out. But I think what Poch's decision ties back to is having seen the way that Raheem Sterling played against Man City in the earlier part of the season, scoring a goal against them, having his time with Kyle Walker, and saying, "Oh, I'd like to replay that and do that again. I would like to try something that I've seen work and roll it out again." And I don't think Raheem Sterling is the most consistent footballer we have in this team. I don't think that he is necessarily a guaranteed starter in any way, shape, or form. I just think that this was a matchup dependent situation, and Kyle Walker is not as fast as he used to be, is definitely able to be exploited, and Raheem Sterling gives you, a better opportunity to take advantage of that, particularly on the left with Chilwell. It allows you to keep, Cole Palmer on the right-hand side. I mean, otherwise you would have seen something like Cole Palmer central, Nico Jackson left, and then something like Madueke on the right. And you had way more balance across the front line with the Palmer-Gusto partnership, particularly with how they were able to keep Doku very, very quiet together, the commitment Cole had on his end to help in the defensive side. And then the way Raheem Sterling, when the first 10 minutes or so was rough. Like, it did not look good. And people were definitely like, oh yeah, see, this decision wasn't correct. But in general, I think he showed up when he needed to, had great composure in front of the goal. Again, could have had a second one, but you could argue, again, some of that just comes down to luck too. And I don't know. I think on the day he had a really solid performance, Nick. So I'm not, after looking at it again, it's just like, it was a good day. It was a good day for him.
Real quick. Is that something you and Sam talked about in the preview pod?
That might be.
Raheem
we might have talked
Raheem
about
and
that.
Walker. So
yeah, we did.
So if you're not listening to the previews, get involved. Let's go. Nick, over to you.
I think I would rate it like a 7.5 out of 10 performance. Again, I think Dan's point about the first 10 minutes were rough, but I think he more than made up for it in the effort and intensity that was shown across the pitch. He was completely and utterly gassed when he came off, and he hasn't played consistently for a while. I think probably like a month or so. Jackson's been favored over him. Mudryk got a run. Madueke's had a run. It's not been a whole lot of consistent work, but for whatever reason, the dude loves to go against Kyle Walker, which not a whole lot of wingers in the Premier League can do, to have the skill set to do even. And I think that's a really interesting kind of vibe when you think about potentially him being a big game selection. We talked to Matt last week, and Matt basically made the point that he was playing for his Wembley place in this game. It's a real interesting dilemma now, right? Because they're most likely, Liverpool is most likely going to play Bradley there. We'll get into a lot of preview stuff as we get through the week, but Is that potentially old experienced head versus young aggressive player? Maybe that's the right call. I don't know. I will say this though, like I think the opportunity that he was given, the opportunity that he took, did I want to see him score more than one goal with the chances that he had? Yes, everyone fucking does. Obviously. Same with Jackson. Right? I thought that he was disciplined in the way that he got back, which has not always been the case this year. And so I thought you saw growth from both wingers, particularly Cole, but I would throw Raheem in here too. They knew that it was a both sides of the field kind of job today. They knew they were going to have to get back and help defensively, and they did. And they knew that they were going to have to close down space, and they did. And they knew that they were going to have to close down De Bruyne and Foden's passing lanes, and they did. And I think if you look at that within the context of how Raheem Sterling played at Middlesbrough a month and a half ago, you would see a completely different player.
Look, again, just to tie up on the lineup, there's more little niggles and injuries and things like that. Robert Sanchez back out, body shield, potentially Silva, doubtfuls not, making the bench. We had Ishe Samuel Smith, Alfie Gilchrist has been there, and Ollie Harrison. Like, this isn't the strongest bench we've had all season either. You're managing ahead of a cup final, and it's Man City, right? The fact that we walked out with a point ahead of a cup final is great. but Poch is managing more than just these 90 minutes and no injuries, it seems like. Now we have a week to prepare. Hard to complain now at the end. And again, like it's against City. If you needed someone to change the game later, I would trust Noni Madueke to come in and make a difference in Raheem. Just the differences in players and kind of how they approach some things with this. And then again, the back line, was absolutely resolute, and it was a little bit forced. Again, if you look at that bench, are you really going to start Trevor Chalobah against City? Like, probably not.
Having played no minutes this year up to this point, not even a few, none.
Alfie Gilchrist. So the backline picked itself, right? But this is the type of backline you want. Like, we saw Malagusto in preseason. He is a harasser of a defender. He doesn't let you breathe. He's up on you and he's quick, right? Chilwell being an outlet, in transition. He found tons of space on the left-hand side as well. And then you've got your two big units, Levi and Disasi, which is exactly what you want in that center to kind of provide that protection. So, I also don't think there's a lot for Poch to do. And I'm surprised that like people kind of tried to cherry pick out the first hour. But at the end of the day, you don't know until the match happens. But in the game, the substitutions, clearly City had to kick up the intensity. They had more shots, increasing more possession, which I think Chelsea was okay with giving up some possession, looking for those counterattacks. But, Nick, the first one is bringing Nkunku on for Sterling, which I think Raz looked a little bit tired, looked a little bit leggy. So again, if you're looking ahead, I was totally fine with Nkunku coming on, especially because we know he's a danger.
I think this is the one I was most disappointed in on the day. One, because I don't think he was played in the proper spot. Like, Jackson was fulfilling the role through the middle. I don't understand why they had to switch at that point. Nkunku's been a left winger, stroke number 10, stroke second striker his entire career. He can play any of those roles. And we saw him play left wing in preseason. He's really good at that too. More than capable on a breakaway for sure. Him through the middle, he just gets lost. He barely touched the ball. And then when he did touch the ball, he made the wrong runs off the ball to create space for the other players on the very few counterattacks that we had in the second half. Just wasn't a fantastic thing. And I think the question that you have, Dan, about Nkunku is like, does he have to start to feel the game out? And if he does start, is it left wing or is it in the middle? And I don't know the answer to that question.
Look, I think there was a question just around how good, bad, indifferent his substitution performance was. I think it was okay, but when you look at who your senior attacking options were, he's the one maybe most likely, if you're going to bet on Madueke, Mudryk, and Nkunku to get a goal against City, you probably would bet on the one who has shown that they can have a hat trick against Manchester City before. And again, that was in a much different side, much different setup. But this felt like another opportunity for Nkunku to start to find rhythm, find form. Has been criticized, and Poch did criticize earlier in the season with Lavia and Nkunku just committing to the team, being not just thinking about, hey, I have my responsibility to go score a goal, but how am I tracking back? How am I defending? And that total team commitment. And I think that's where it was maybe a little lacking on the day from Nkunku. Again, I think people are going to be like, well, he didn't get any service. We didn't get the ball forward. It's like, yeah, that's fair. But we also did turn the ball over at times where we should have just kind of knocked it far and got him to run and see what happens. And it just didn't come off. I mean, it wasn't, like it was the worst substitution in the world, but I mean, we were pretty beat after 60 minutes. Like we were looking real rough overall because this City side was unrelenting, particularly that second half. I mean, they had 3 more shots total over the course of the second half. They had more possession, and it just was an absolute slugfest at that point. And we were just more like endure, and try to get through it than anything else.
For people asking why no Mudryk, why no Madueke, surely they'd be good on a break. They don't defend. That's why. That's the end of it. Like, you can't trust them to defend. You can't trust them to get back. That's why. Sorry.
It's also that they're going to be dispossessed. And when they get dispossessed, it's likely they're in an area where they're not going to be able to get back and support quick enough. And I think that's where, Cole even did a better job of this in this match today.
Cole
where
was awesome. Yeah.
He got back. He got involved. He made life a lot easier for Malo Gusto when it came to being able for him to venture further forward and to be present in both the attack and the defense.
So at the end of the day, like, putting your best player on is usually not a bad tactic, right? And also, like, if something were to fall to Nkunku, great, right? You may not get the entire performance, but whether it's a free kick, whether it's something in the box. I mean, he almost made something out of nothing, right? He went for kind of his side volley and tried to do something. Again, just putting your best player on typically isn't the worst thing. Thankfully, the rest of the team were grinding. Chalobah came in for Palmer the 71st, and then Cesare Casadei for Jackson the 82nd. I did a little halftime IG live with Yan over on Instagram, and we talked about this very specifically of like, Poch loves height, and we're kind of going through the bench. It's like, who could come in? To be fair, Yan was like Chalobah, and I was like, I just don't know if Poch trusts him, right? He does have the characteristics to be a mobile defender and like to step up and do a lot of different types of jobs. I just didn't know if Poch trusted him. So, hey, question answered. And then I called out Casadei. I said, especially in the midfield, as someone who can just be a big body in front of the back line between, our smaller mids. I was like, he fits the role. Whether or not we see him or not, let's find out. To me, Nick, this just really hammers home. Poch loves height, right? Especially in these situations. You looked in like Alfie Gilchrist would have been a dog out there hounding people down. Other than that, those are your only 2 options. And he went with the most, I think, pragmatic based on their physical traits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how pragmatic it is to give 2 players their, mostly their debuts on the season at the Etihad. I think there's a real question about that, but none of those players really hurt us. I mean, none of the subs really hurt us in any way. Like the goal is a scrap goal that we give up, right? It was the one time all day that we didn't close down that space after a ball was deflected out. Usually Connor was there. Usually Palmer would close in. Like, the frontline players would do a really great job of squeezing up so they didn't have easy passes or easy shots. And it just didn't happen, man. Like, for those who are blaming Chalobah for like a quote unquote a lazy knee, you don't understand how hard Rodri hit that ball. There was no time to react to that. And if Chalobah would have put his face in front of it, there's no guarantee it still doesn't go in. It's a really, really, really hard shot. It's not the first time he's done it either. He has a history of doing this. I fucking hate him, but he does that really well. He hits it with his left foot, and I think it's unsavable either way. So, I don't know, man.
Rodri obnoxiously has 6 goals on the season, right? And he has done this. He's filled in the gaps. He had 2 last season, he has 6 this season. He's filling in gaps that you don't expect him to this season, whether it's because KDB was out or whatever. But like Rodri has stepped up in a new type of role for them, which has been massively frustrating. But again, Dan, over to you. I know a lot of people are pointing at the goal and things like that, but the defensive stats are still quite strong at the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, people are, to the point Nick made. I mean, Trev's knee, the deflection, Cassidy not moving in quick enough to close down. It was one of the few times all day that, it's almost like the Peter Pan shadow scenario. Like Gallagher was effectively Rodri's shadow almost the entire game, which is challenging in itself. So hats off there. But it was one moment, unfortunately, out of, I think, what in general was a very strong day out for the team. And so, yeah, I'm not going to beat up any player too hard for that.
All right. Well, we're going to take our last ad break. When we get back, plenty more about showering certain players with praise. Thank the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. So the fun part of the script is given the praise where it is due. So the first one that we wanted to touch on was Disasi, Axel, the rock star himself. CFC Daily pulled a quote from Jamie Carragher and said, quote, "I can't remember a better defensive performance this season. That was a John Terry performance. Woof." Dan, how do you parse those massive words from a very average center back now turned career pundit?
Noted player hater himself, Jamie Carragher. Look, at the pub, and I want to hear Nick talk about this too. Disasi was the guy who was getting everybody fired up. And, we're talking thousands of miles away from the actual match where it was happening at the Etihad, where you could see people, supporters who were vibing with it. They were absolutely feeling what Disasi was putting out there. Thousands of miles away in a pub in, New York City, people were fired up by Disasi on the day. Like the way he was celebrating a block like a goal was phenomenal. Like that type of energy, that enthusiasm, that intensity, the way he was committing himself to every challenge he was getting into. Like it's not an easy assignment going up against City and their attackers. It's not an easy assignment having to also kind of partner up with Colwell and try to figure out how you make life difficult for Erling Haaland and the other attackers in Manchester City. And Disasi was having fun with it. And like, he's kind of had some seesaw performances this season where you'll have like really, really like good, but this is ultimately his best performance of the season by far. I mean, 16 total clearances himself, 3 total block shots, 4 out of 4 aerial duels won. I mean, which is critical in the amount of corners that we had given up to City, that he was there for helping to kind of secure those too. So just in general, I think it was a really, really strong day from him, playing both a right center back and then also a part of a center back pairing too. So in a back 4 and in a back 3, he was tested today and came good for it.
Yeah, it was my kind of performance. I love the intensity. I love the passion. I love the kind of throwing your body at everything that moves kind of, thing. I think to your point, he hasn't had maybe 2 or 3 games with Colwell as a center back pairing this year. And to do that at the Etihad is, I think, a real testament to their spirit and their intuition together. There's some early moments of nerviness in the first half where they didn't pass Haaland between each other really effectively, but then they figured that out. I thought that was great. I think the post-match comments are hilarious, but the last thing I'd say about Disasi is like, he is one of these like quote unquote elder statesmen in this team of youngsters. And I don't, as we were talking about the kind of the passion earlier and like what that can mean for the supporters, I also think it fired up Colwell. I also think he like helped bring him back, because this is only Colwell's second game back, first start since he was injured. And I think like you saw that rub off on him a little bit. And that's one of the intangible things that you can't really put on a stat sheet that I saw during the game. And I was like really, really happy to see it because I'm really pumped about that, man. I think that's fun.
Kind of the standard, the gold standard of a center back pairing. If they relish the very not fun part of the game, if they relish stopping an attack as much as our attackers relish scoring a goal, you got the right person for the right job. And that is important. It's funny, elder statesman, my man's 25 and change, right? But in this team, next to an almost 21-year-old Levi Cole, it makes sense. I think that just to tie off on him in the quotes, I think this just kind of sums him up and his mentality in the day really well. This is from the Chelsea website. It said, quote, "To be honest, I'm hurting. But at the same time, I'm proud of the performance of the team. We played very, very well all together. We showed we can struggle together, stick together, and fight for each other. In the end, they scored a goal, and it's a bad feeling, so I'm a bit frustrated, but I want to keep the momentum of the team. We played great, and we showed we have grown as a team," end quote. My only thing, again, is I want to see this type of passion and dominance against like the lower level teams, right? Or the West Hams around us. Mm-hmm. We can't only act like this against Man City. Part of that comes with confidence, a little bit of swagger, though. So let's see if we can tie off. The other one who absolutely had himself a day when you judge on the basis of clearances was Malo Gusto. And it's hilarious here in Google because we put Malo was mucho gusto. And Google says, would you like to change that to the Spanish verb fue? Malo fue mucho gusto? My man is vibing. He's French, but he was smooth as you could have wanted on the day. Not only defensively, Dan, but he got himself very much involved in the attack as well, which lends him to getting this type of praise that it wasn't one-dimensional from him. He was electric on the right.
I think it was the biggest area of concern because in the first match, it was Reece James who had a chance to go up against Doku, and Doku was anonymous. Like he was getting put on the side of a milk carton after that match. And it took this moment to find him again, which was great. But Malo Gusto did almost the exact same thing with a little help from Cole Palmer on the day against a really tough defensive assignment, while also finding a way to contribute in the attacking phases of the game. And that right side, because Doku was also not super interested in committing himself to defense, there was a lot of opportunity to move quickly up and down. Now, I mean, people could highlight, oh, he lost possession 10 times, but he won 9 of 13 ground duels. That's really, really good. He has some really insane recovery speed. And so I think what some people is like, oh, well, he got ran past and like, oh, you can't believe he lost. It was like part of his game is that he is fast enough to say, oh, okay, I'm going to be a little more aggressive. I'm going to try to commit forward. I'm going to be a little bit more risky. And if I can't get it done, I have the physical ability to put myself in a position to restore order. And he did so quite well. I think there were a few times where people were like, man, that's a real rough challenge. Like the fact that he did not get carded is definitely a good thing. I think it would have made it a much more difficult game if he did. But I mean, he had a really, really good day out. And I think he was also resonating with the people at the pub, which I'm sure was the case in Kansas City as well too, Nick.
Yeah, he was the one at our pub that was getting people going. And to be fair, I think he was my man of the match as well. The assignment's really difficult, right? Doku creates a lot of space and opportunities for everybody else. Not only was Gusto able to shut him down, but he was able to effectively pass the other kind of overlapping runs and underlapping runs to the other players effectively. The communication was really good. Him and Disasi were on the same page for a lot of the game. And I think that is a huge bonus. Doku's going to be seeing Chelsea blue in his nightmares for a little while here because he had 2 just very, very, very poor games. And the step overs didn't confuse us. The tricks and flicks didn't confuse us. Not only that, but Gusto was incredible moving the ball forward. I mean, he brought out his own techers. It was a real kind of full game from him. And again, I just look at this guy growing up in front of our eyes a little bit. taking on some of the toughest opposition that he could face and coming out the other side. It's only going to do wonders for his confidence, and his confidence seems pretty high already, Brandon. So it doesn't seem like he's short of it anyway. And
well, if you guys remember, we posted a clip from preseason was the Malo Gusto Techers, right? And I was pitch side in Atlanta, and that's where I got it, and I was blown away. I was like, we got to clip this, and it was great because I think a lot of people are like, oh, like Malo Gusto kind of has that like street footballer side of him, right? Where he's a right back, but not really, you know? So here's the number one thing I was most impressed about Malo Gusto, because look, his decision-making has gotten himself into trouble at times this season. One foul on the day, one foul against Doku, one foul on that side when he was dribbled at, ran at incessantly. And I think that to me just shows how disciplined he was. And he knew not to stick a leg out in the box, be patient, wait until the attacker makes a mistake, then pounce. And to me, that was just tidy from him on the decision-making side, which is the difference between good defenders and great. And we saw it today. Lost possession, I'm not as worried about that. How many crosses he put in the box, right? Like he was only dispossessed on the dribble twice. So, I'm all right. All right. Gallagher goes bananas is the last one we want to go here. No goals, no assists, but everything else, Dan. Literally everything else.
It was someone clipped it together and posted it on Twitter/X, and it is a really, really good example of how you take someone out of the game. I mean, Rodri has been, in the absence of De Bruyne at points this season, like one of their most important players, and helping dictate how they're going to go play, how they're going to go establish their game, how they're going to make it difficult for you, how they're going to push up their lines. And Conor Gallagher was terrorizing the man. He was haunting him. He was on top of him. He was making it difficult. He was disrupting passes. He was one of the main reasons. I think Caicedo helped a lot in this too. Was for really disrupting the way that City like to play. They want to retain possession. They want to make it super difficult. They want to recycle the ball endlessly and find the 2 or 3 pass combination to get in a position to serve it up to Haaland, or to get Foden into a good place, or have Doku make himself available. And that just was not possible with the way that Gallagher was really a menace, was really disrupting force, and took Rodri, their catalyst, just out of the equation. And yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed watching him play. I think that he is embodying some of that classic Chelsea, just absolute bastard-coated bastard with bastard filling that Nick so loves. I think he had some of that.
I wonder where he maybe learned that from.
Interesting. Yeah, look, I this is why stats only matter a little bit to me. Like the eye test, for Conor Gallagher to be gassed at the end of the game is a real undertaking. Like the dude ran 14K in this one, sprinted 14K. You know how good a fucking shape you have to be in to do that? Like we were under the cosh. He was the one, pressing out. I think he was largely the one keeping a responsible shape and lane discipline for, deflecting or rerouting some of City's more direct passes. He barged into a couple of players. Yeah, for sure. Got a little rough and tumble, which is fine with me. I really, this was the all heart performance. Just, I'm going to run until I can't run anymore. I'm going to be a nuisance until I can't be a nuisance anymore. And I think if my memory serves, he kind of fell to the ground at the final whistle. And that's well-deserved, my guy, because it was an incredibly disciplined, heart, emotionally filled performance. And I'm sure he slept well last night.
Still sleeping at this point. Look, only 46 touches, which is like the 5th, 6th highest, but it was 10 touches in the defensive third, 24 in the middle third, and 14 in the attacking third, and even 2 in their penalty. So he was advanced today. So he only had 46 touches, but I'll back you with the stats here, Nick, to the fact of he had 1 key pass. He was 3 for 4 long balls completed. He had 6 of his 10 ground duels won. That's where he got his touches. He got his touches from getting the ball back. And he's even 2 for 4 on aerial duels. I would love to see the recoveries and some other things. But look, at the end of the day, he did the off the ball work that was needed. And to be fair, so did Enzo Fernandez. He had 16 touches in our defensive third, 7 inside our box. And that just shows you he was committed to essentially holding that back third, getting the ball up where Connor and Raheem and other players were. But Connor absolutely willed all of this. And again, the fact that he lasted all 90 minutes is super, super impressive. Didn't he pick up like a stupid yellow too? And he didn't get sent off?
That was, I think, Caicedo who picked up a stupid yellow and then almost picked up a second one early in the second half and then was able to kind of stay error-free the rest of the game, which is really something. I would also just say, in a game where Nico Jackson could have easily picked up his 10th yellow card, he did show a really good amount of discipline in this one to not do the stupid thing. And only 7 more matches to go, pal. Only 7 more to go.
You can do it. So, look, there's a lot more, but we want to pull out those 3. Obviously, Cole Palmer being a man on fire, proving to Pep and co that letting him go was a mistake, which is great. But it is time to do Dan of the match. You're unable to conduct your official scientific survey, but we can just push results out.
Look, I did a straw poll in the pub afterwards. Look, the cell reception and Wi-Fi was a little spotty. So the tweets that got out, great. The tweets that didn't, I'm sorry. But I just started asking around post-match. You know, the beers were flowing. The shots of Jameson were happening. And Disasi, followed closely by Malagusto, were the 1 and 2 for a Dan in the match in my post-pub survey.
And there goes the scientific part of that. But hey, results are results. Yep. We'll take it.
I recently talked to one person. They confirmed my bias, and we're off. All right.
Don't publish the statistical model, Dan. We don't need it. All right, let's look around the league real quick at some of the other results. All but one match has been played. Liverpool beating Brentford 4-1. Mohamed Salah back on the score sheet. So as we all looked ahead to the League Cup final, not exactly how we wanted to see Liverpool, because Klopp hates a noon kickoff. So you're like, rattle, wobble. No, business as usual. Arsenal beating Burnley 5-0. So we started the day with so many goals this weekend. Villa beating Fulham 2-1, staying in the top 4, which is wild. Newcastle Bournemouth 2-2. Again, Newcastle cracks. Forest beating West Ham 2-0. Calvin Phillips with 2 cautions in 3 minutes, not declaring himself in glory. Wolves beating Spurs 2-1. Ainge ball off and running. Sheffield United 0 with a red card. Brighton 5. So things are going from bad to worse for the 20th place team. And Man United just snuck by Luton. Again, getting the gifts of gifts after gifts for them. Everton play Crystal Palace on Monday, so yet to see. Anything else you want to pull out of those results on the weekend? I mean, again, we're still intense somehow after all of this maneuvering that we've tried to do. We just cannot get unstuck.
I mean, here's a positive I'll throw at you. I mean, we've now played our lot against Liverpool and City for the year. And for my money, that will be the title race, although I still think City will win it pretty easily by the end. So our 4 toughest matches are done. That's good.
Maybe the only other thing that you would point out is we're only 3 points off of Brighton in 7th. So climbing the table should realistically not be as difficult as it is, but we certainly have made it harder for ourselves the later it gets in the season. But again, we are not as lucky as Manchester United, who somehow on 35 goals have won 14 games and have 44 points and are in 6th place and very likely to advance above Tottenham, given the way they have started to teeter at this point in the season. But a top 7 finish does not seem outside the realm of possibility if we can string together one or two. That match against Brentford post cup is going to be really important.
That's an annoying thing to point out, because we're at 42 goals for, 41 against. They're at 35 for, 34 against. So they're plus 1 goal difference, just as we are. But yet they've got 14, 2, and 9 as the results, and we're at 10, 5, 10. Just shows you it matters when those goals come in. If you're going to lose, give them all up. But when you win, you need to win. And we just have not done that. Super frustrating. But yeah, a little bit of silver lining. So Liverpool did them a favor. They're at first on 57 points with 25 played. Arsenal second on 55 points. Man City in third on 53, but they have the game in hand, right? 24 matches played. And then again, Villa's still there in 4th place. Spurs doing themselves no help. Villa on 49 points. Spurs in 5th on 47. So I'm sure Matt Law and everybody's glad they dropped points. United 6, Brighton 7, Newcastle 8, West Ham 9. Again, both teams, Newcastle and West Ham, not flying. We got to get over that hump, right? We got to get over those two teams with 13 matches left. Like I said, 10th place, 35 played. And Wolves, we're only 2 goals above them on goal difference. We're +1, they're -1. So it's fine margins, Nick. It was lovely seeing ourselves as we were winning against Man City up to 8th, but of course it was never going to last.
I don't know what it's going to take. It feels very neutrally in terms of like progress, but you just got to keep stringing results together. You just got to keep winning. I think West Ham seems on a very clear slide. I think Newcastle feels very much like we are right now, and I think Brighton is there to be had. I think after that it gets very, very challenging. So 7th feels about as good as we can do right now, and that is shameful when you think about how bad United is.
Anyways, look, we'll keep pushing ahead, but it is cup final week, right? So as we turn our attentions wholly to Wembley and what that means, cup final against Liverpool, 90 minutes to decide it, hopefully, otherwise extra time all the way through pens. The whole doing the cup final double against Klopp, scoring no goals, going to extra time, both into penalty shootouts. That is not how we want to play it, but it seems like they're just getting from strength to strength. So I'd love to see a couple players return to fitness, beef up that bench. But if we defend like this, it's going to be hard for them to do much against us. But look, it's Wembley. It's special. Everything changes, right? One off at the National Stadium, Dan. You guys have been there for the FA Cup. Nothing else matters, right? No other context going on around the clubs matters. If anything, it's more pressure on Liverpool with Klopp leaving.
Well, Klopp leaving and the fact that there's an injury crisis striking Liverpool right now. And I'm sure there's going to be zero mention of the fact that Chelsea have been fielding an unfit 11 plus for the majority of the season. And despite having 3 or 4 injuries to not even some of their biggest starting players, Liverpool are going to be questioned as a little bit of an upstart, a little bit of a trying to fight through adversity to get this victory for Klopp one last time. If you think that the narrative is going to be anything other than Liverpool getting absolutely one-sided favoritism in this, you have not paid any attention to the way that the British media, the UK publications love this Liverpool team. And so I think in general, it's every team that is not Liverpool is going to be rooting for Chelsea to get something done, which that will be at least one nice thing in this, that you have likely Arsenal supporters, likely City supporters, United supporters who don't want to see Liverpool win, don't want to see Klopp win. And so we'll take that energy. We will assemble it. We will mobilize it, and we will try to fight for the future of football.
Do yourselves a favor. We're just saying this a week out from the game. We're recording this on Sunday, the 18th. Don't listen with the sound on. You're just going to get mad. It's the commentary that you will see. I will do a preview for you. Heroic Liverpool one last ride for Klopp. Mo Salah, is he the greatest ever? All this, and Chelsea, one foul. What a group of thugs. What a incredibly undisciplined, stupid team. Billions of dollars spent. I don't see a result. That's exactly the commentary that you're going to hear next week. Okay. So just shut off the sound. And it's on ESPN. So do yourself a favor anyway. Don't watch it.
You might be reminded once that Mohamed Salah played for Chelsea back in the day too. But
come back to haunt his former club that he spent a week and a half at basically in the span of his career. So yeah, we just did it for you. We just did all the commentary. You don't need to listen to it.
All right, that's going to wrap it up from us for the Man City match review. Again, more comment coming at you as always. All right, check out the YouTube if you haven't subscribed. It's free. It helps us a ton if you want to see our smiling faces. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.